I'm informed that we all do need to sign in each day, and so those of you in the room, please make sure that you've signed in at the registration desk. And we will be doing a special thing for the vendors this morning. Every vendor has tickets. Anybody who purchases from a vendor gets a ticket, which you'll put in a box, your name on it with a box at the registration table, and we'll do a draw for some prizes at the end of the meeting. So really want to encourage you. You'll see some of them have moved closer here, so make sure you go there, but there's still some in Salon D at the far end of the building, and so please make sure that we get there as well, particularly over the lunch hour. We don't have a break in our morning, but if we manage to free up some time, we'll give you a chance to do that as well. Just as a few of us are signing in at the registration table, I will do a quick review of the order of the day before we officially convene. And so we will do the opening welcome and blessing. For the meeting itself, our first session starts at 9:10. It's on children and families. You'll see we have the three speakers there who are well known to us. At 10 a.m., we'll turn to early learning and childcare funding, and Karen Isaac will join us via Zoom, and we do have a resolution attached to that in the package, number 3. At 10:30, we'll look to the Center of Excellence, and Deputy Chief Harlan Schilling, who's been with us throughout the meeting, will present on that. 11:15, BC's proposed amendments to DRIPA and the Interpretation Act, and that'll be an in-camera session, chiefs and proxies only, both here and online. There is an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement for that session. Most of us have already signed that. If you'd still like to sign it, I believe the registration desk can help you with that, and if not, Laura here at the staff table can help with that. The NDA does say written or verbal agreement to abide by it. And then we have an announcement on the Two-Spirit LGBTQIA plus committee or commission. We'll make an announcement about membership for that. After lunch, we do then have the address from Ministers Nikki Sharma, BC Attorney General, and Minister Spencer Chandra Herbert, the Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation Minister, and those will continue in camera after lunch. We do have a resolution 4, which is covered by the NDA, so that'll be dealt with in camera, and we'll report that out once we come out of camera, just what the decision was. And then we turn to our final agenda item, which is at 2 o'clock, which is fisheries and wild salmon, and you'll see the regional chief, and Bob Chamberlain will help us there. Bob has graciously agreed to allow us to do the resolutions that are designated there on the agenda as an omnibus, and we'll organize that as well. And then following that, we'll have a few more resolutions to deal with, and then look to our closing remarks. I've heard from a few of you that as lovely as it is here, you'd like to get done a little sooner, so we'll see what we can do, but we are designated to be here till 3:30, and again, we'll try to time manage that. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to double check one thing, and then we'll look to get started. So let us turn to the opening blessing, and please, I'll ask you to draw your attention as we resume our proceedings today. So we'll look to the opening blessing. I do want to let you know that Dr. Gwendolyn Point and Cheryl are at BC Women's Council meeting, and they'll be joining us shortly. And so I'll turn to Emery Gabriel, from the elder from St. Pinkin, and to our elders, knowledge keepers, Harvey McLeod and Simply and Stuart Gonzalez, to help us with that beginning. I'll invite them to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you had a good rest. I want to say a few words before I say a prayer in my language. I just want to ask Creator to bless every one of you, keep you safe, get you home safely, keep your family safe at home. And we pray for a good day today. We do things in a good way. And with that, I'd like to say some words in my language. Kulntuten kan wist, dali khastis khalkhalt apna, yayat sweeti khast, yayat sweeti khastis pus, lut sweet it's aimed, lut sweet it's kisses, yayat sweet khast, apnas khalkhalt. And quitlim kil and chit dali khast ludit khanumta ludit khailta limlim kulen chuten limlim white
Hat squal to know yep. Swat seem to see oko quachet, seem to coopies, quamantomi seem quamantomi seem to good quach no me up seem.
Why Kashkal Halti Peace Nuxilch Ishqueast Harvey McLeod, former Almichum for Upper Nicola. Just want to thank our elder for setting us up in a good way for today. And my friend for the song. And you here in the room and on the computer, we welcome you. Today is a different kind of a day.
In the years of chieftainship, I've never experienced an agenda that like we have today. But the topics and the discussions are so important to lead each one of us forward in a good way. To find that road that will see that we're all taken care of, that our voices are heard, and that we are seen. We are seen. Our worldview is heard and understood. We've been sharing our worldview now for a number of years. This is who we are. I'm not that. I'm this. And that's slowly coming back in our community. Our communities are looking at our chaptooks, our creation stories, and finding the laws outlined in them, creation stories about who we are. And that's starting to be seen. People are starting to believe. And especially as our people reignite who they are through the language is so important. So we are in a good place today. I ask that you be respectful for each other, take care of each other, take care of yourself. And in closing, just want to thank our staff and regional chief and his leadership for the organization and setting up of the agenda and supporting you as we do our work. So let's have a really good day, White Limland.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome back to the second day of the 22nd Annual Special Chiefs Meeting for the BC Assembly First Nations. As we turn to our first agenda item on children and families, you'll see I'm joined here at microphones 1 and 2 by Deb Foxcroft, the co-chair of the National Children's Chiefs Commission, and Cookme Helen Henderson, BC Commissioner for the National Children's Chiefs Commission, and we will be joined online by Mary Teegee, our Children Our Way and Executive Director of the Carrier Secondary Child and Family Services Agency. Over to you, Deborah. Microphone 1, please.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to just wanted to acknowledge the chiefs and Cookpees and the elders and the knowledge keepers, and thank you so much for the prayer and the meal. And also I just want to acknowledge the Silks people here, and also the Penticton nation that is here, and the ancestors and the knowledge keepers of this land. I hold up my hands to all of you today, and I just wanted to say Uklama Quills, Deb Foxcroft, Sishot Aksup. I'm from Sishot in Port Alberni, one of the Nuu-chah-nulth nations. I'm the National Children's Chiefs Commission co-chair, but I also am the BCAFN commissioner. And I just wanted to have my one of our commissioners to also introduce themselves.
Cook's Deb. Wait Kuchwaidap Gukbit Helen Henderson Wensquast. Hello everyone, my name is Chief Helen Henderson and I'm happy to be connecting with each and every one of you today. I would like to honor the prayer song and the prayers for today. I believe wholeheartedly that prayers are needed in the work that we are doing. And as we give the presentation, I'm always cognizant of our lives back home in community and how the work that we're doing is going to impact and already has impact in community. And what can our response be in those times while the work continues? And we know as Indigenous, First Nations, and Secwepemc people what works in terms of building our energies and building our strength in the work, meaning getting back onto the land, listening to the messages of the animals as they present themselves to you, going to the beautiful waters that we all have and should have access to continue our ceremony as we shed our tears, as we shed anger, as we shed frustration and allow the water to take our pain so that we can refresh and re-energize. Those are the touch points that I'd like to highlight as a much needed exercise for the National Children's Chiefs Commission members, as well as our technical and legal teams that are carrying the work, because the work is heavy. And the more that we have and hear about ceremony to honor the work, it really does feed into that collective energy that's needed to ensure that the work is carried by all of us and that we all have contributions to the work. So I just wanted to offer those statements prior to the presentation. And if you think back to how we can connect this and how this connects directly into your community, that's how it resonates with me. And if you have any questions about how that happens in your particular case, then please, I'm open, I and Deb are open to having those types of conversations for sure after the presentation. So Cook's Gem for everybody around the table, our matrix for sure that continue to show up and lead and guide in the most gentle, kind and compassionate way. Cook's Gem.
Thank you again. I'm not sure if Mary TG is on the line. If she wanted to introduce herself quickly.
Good morning, everybody. So happy to be here with you today.
Okay, thank you. I did want to also acknowledge the children and the youth that are in the room, you know, our most precious resources and gifts from the Creator, and just wanted to acknowledge them because this is why we do this work for today, tomorrow, and in the future, and the unborn children. So I just wanted to acknowledge them because this is why we are here. I'm hoping somebody's going to change the slides for us.
It's going to be me.
Oh, or you are? Okay. So me and Helen will be sharing the presentation. We have, I think, about 10 slides or 9 slides. So I'll start and the opportunity for any questions or comments after our presentation. So So slide 2 is about, sorry, it would have been the next set of,
Yep, that's the one.
okay, sorry, I got to put my glasses on, sorry. So discrimination in First Nations Child and Family Services and Jordan's Principle. Just to briefly remind you of the context of the National Children's Chiefs Commission. In 2007, the Caring Society and the AFN filed a human rights complaint against Canada. 2006, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal substantiated that complaint, finding that Canada discriminated against our children in the First Nations Child and Family Services Program and Jordan's Principle. The tribunal ordered Canada to stop discriminating and to implement reforms to ensure that discrimination would never happen again. Here we are, 10 years later, and the human rights case is still unresolved. For a period of time, Canada was willing to work with the parties to find solutions that would work. But after First Nations rejected a draft final agreement in October 2024, Canada refused to engage any further. The National Children's Chiefs Commission made multiple attempts to re-engage with Canada, but Canada did not respond. CHRT 80, in August of last year, the tribunal said that's enough. Canada can refuse to negotiate, but we need to move on. Go and consult with the First Nations and come back in 4 months with a plan for long-term reform. The tribunal encouraged Canada to work with the other parties and come back with a plan everyone agreed to, and Canada did not agree to that. So the NCC worked with the Caring Society to conduct regional engagements on a national plan and build a plan to end Canada's discrimination. The plan is the Loving Justice Plan, and it reflects input from rights holders and experts, along with decades of research and legal orders. Canada did not, as far as we know, do any engagement. They recycled the draft final agreement that we already rejected and called it a national framework. On the surface, the Loving Justice and Canada Plan might seem similar. The Loving Justice Plan sets national minimum standards and builds in space for regional variations. Canada's plan includes a national framework with regional agreements. You might think that national minimum standards and a national framework sound a lot alike. You might also think that the regional variations are not much different from regional agreements, but the differences are huge. In the Loving Justice Plan, the national minimum standards set the floor for long-term reform, whereas Canada's national framework sets a ceiling. Whereas the Loving Justice regional variations are intended to address the distinct needs and circumstances of First Nations in Canada's plan, the regional agreements provide very little room for flexibility. Those regional agreements are about how to implement Canada's plan without actually changing the plan in any way. Negotiations of regional agreements. It is not clear that Canada's plan to negotiate regional agreements represent an offer to negotiate in good faith. It looks more like a pretext for imposing long-term reform that works for Canada. For one, there is very little that Canada is actually willing to negotiate. Canada states very clearly that funding structure and amount will not be up for negotiations. Governance will also be non-negotiable. Canada will retain all decision-making authority. To put pressure on us, Canada is also imposing strict time limits and planning to conclude all the regional agreements across Canada by September the 30th. To me, this is not negotiations. This is Canada's usual divide and conquer, take it or leave it approach. Funding. The Loving Justice funding approach recognizes that underfunding has been a core driver of discrimination. The Loving Justice approach is designed to set First Nations up to succeed rather to manage scarcity. The funding structure builds on the measures of measuring to thrive approach, adding flexibility to added distinct needs and circumstances. Key elements include capacity building funding where nations and service providers have not yet built the full range of services their communities need. Actual base funding for some elements like capital and post-majority supports, actual as a backstop to make sure children are not harmed by underfunding. In contrast, Canada's funding approach is exactly the funding model in the draft final agreement we rejected more than a year ago. Deflection of responsibility. It's important to remember the problem we are trying to solve, Canada's discrimination, long-term reform, is about ending Canada's discrimination against our children and families. We also have to remember that because Canada is always trying to misdirect our attention, they like to point at our own child and family service agencies and say, look over there, that's where the problem is. Canada tries to do just that in their plan instead of describing how Canada will be held accountable for ending discrimination. The plan insists that agency accountability is a central tenet of a long-term reform. In contrast, the Loving Justice Plan sets out multiple layers of governance, accountability, and enforcement measures to hold Canada accountable for ending its discrimination. I'll now hand it over to Helen to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Deb. Ongoing funding. There's one element in Canada's plan that reflects a clear win for First Nations. When we rejected the draft final agreement, we insisted that time-limited funding is not good enough for our children. Canada listened. Canada's plan now includes ongoing funding of $4.4 billion annually. This is a new commitment that is not included in the regional agreement that was reached in Ontario. We need more details about this proposal, but this is a step in the right direction. And it means that Canada can be moved by our collective resistance. We cannot accept Canada's divide and conquer approach. We cannot let a regional approach weaken our collective power. The Loving Justice Plan offers a unified, rights-based alternative grounded in law, evidence, and First Nations decision-making. We really encourage you to find out more about the Loving Justice Plan and the Canada Plan. You can use the QR codes that you see here on the screen for finding both plans online. There are also several webinars you can watch. These are hosted on the Our Children Our Way YouTube channel, and each one delves into the details of different sections of the plans. And we'll be hosting 2 more webinars. One will focus on the funding approaches in the Loving Justice and Canada plans. The second one will focus on how the 2 plans approach accountability within service-level agreements. If you want to register for those webinars, you can use the QR codes on the screen. The Caring Society in Canada filed their plans with the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal on December 22nd. The tribunal will consider both plans and then choose between them to make final orders on long-term reform. Before the tribunal makes that decision, First Nations will have an opportunity to, 1, propose amendments to the Loving Justice Plan, and 2, vote on the Loving Justice Plan as the preferred pathway to end Canada's discrimination in First Nations child and family services. The Caring Society and the National Children's Chiefs Commission have developed a process for seeking feedback and suggested amendments to the Loving Justice Plan from First Nations. We have an online form in which you can suggest changes to the text of the plan or changes to the implementation of the plan. Because chiefs will ultimately be asked to vote on the Loving Justice Plan, this amendment process is directed at chiefs. We will send a link to the form along with information about the amendment process to all First Nations chiefs. We encourage you to consult with your experts, and you are free to use someone else to complete the form for you. Our team is finalizing the online form right now, and we'll send out a link to the form by Monday at the latest. What's the date? It's Wednesday? Thursday? Thursday. It's Thursday today. Public service announcement. The QR code on the screen now will take you to the form, but if you try it, you'll find that the form is not yet available. You'll have up until April 3rd to suggest any changes to the Loving Justice Plan. After that, the Commission and the Caring Society will work to incorporate the suggested amendments into the plan and then to distribute the amended plan for at least 90 days before the next AFN Assembly, where chiefs will vote on the Loving Justice Plan. We mentioned earlier that the Loving Justice Plan makes room for regional variations to address the distinct needs and circumstances of First Nations in different regions. We will need to establish regional variations to meet our needs here in British Columbia. And now Mary TG will join us now to talk about what that would look like.
Good morning, everybody. Just really honored to be here with you today. Denize, Sekwize, Skyze, Samogyet, Samahanach, and beautiful people and wonderful leaders. Thank you for providing us this time to present this really important topic. As you know, we've come to you before to bring forward what's been going on within not only the national processes, but in provincially, about over a year ago, the First Nations Directors Forum, Our Children Our Way, had applied to become interested parties within the long-term reform. We were finally granted that status with some limitations. And so it's really important that we have a seat at the table and to ensure that BC has a strong voice at the table. We know what's happening, of course, within Ontario. There is an Ontario final agreement that they presented over the last few weeks. And so, as you know, the Caring Society, AFN, and Canada, and the Caring Society and the AFN are parties to the original tribunal proceedings. And of course, Canada, there's the three parties. We had applied to become interested parties, much like the Chiefs of Ontario and NAN. So we have been granted that. This gives us more opportunity, as I said, to have a seat at the table. So within the actual orders, the tribunal talks about developing the national plan with regional variations. And this is where our opportunity is to ensure that we have the Made in BC approach. I just wanted to go back a little bit in history. The way that BC is situated and the reason that we received interested parties is because we did not receive prevention funding. The rest of the country under the federal enhanced prevention program received some prevention funding, but ourselves, the Maritimes and Yukon did not receive prevention funding at all. So, you know, Manitoba, Alberta, Saskatchewan, etc., they had some semblance of prevention funding on reserve. This is very important point. This is on reserve prevention funding. And we're still having to deal with the province for off reserve. And you know, at some point we'll get to that. But right now, the opportunity for us is to look at all the work that we've already done in BC. We received a mandate back in 2008, 2009 to develop a Made in BC approach for prevention. At that time, we went out throughout BC, all the different agencies and the unaffiliated nations to find out what does prevention mean in British Columbia. Unfortunately, we did not get picked to have prevention funding at that time. So we lobbied, and years later in 2012, many of you that were in leadership at the time or in the community will recall that we developed a Made in BC prevention framework. Now, that prevention framework was completed in advance of getting it presented to the Treasury Board. And so we were all quite happy. We were really eager that we were finally going to get prevention funding on reserve. Unfortunately, as you recall, in 2013, a report came out by Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafon, what it was called When Talk Trumps Service. That report was the excuse that the federal government used so that we did not receive prevention funding. So BC did not receive prevention funding. At that time, the amount this included not only the agency nations, but all the 203 nations. It was around $52 million to get started providing prevention funding. And unfortunately, the government said that BC wasn't united based on Mary Ellen's report. So we didn't receive the funding. You fast forward to the opportunity that we have now. We started receiving prevention funding in 2018, 2019. Because we did not receive any prevention money, we were receiving prevention money at actual cost. Because we had no baseline, we didn't know what it cost. We then went back to court. If you recall, the Caring Society took Canada back to court because we didn't have any capital. Certainly there was money there for staffing, for activities, but there was no money for infrastructure or capital. So we took Canada back to court and we did win. And that is why you have now CHRT 41, which is for capital and infrastructure on reserve to provide child and family services prevention programming. So right now, what we need to do is to use this opportunity to really specify what exactly is needed in BC to, first of all, build capacity. I know that many nations are still building capacity. I know I've heard from a lot of leadership to say that they can't even get a preservation worker or a prevention worker in community. They can't get social workers. There's all these issues. There's also a backlog in CHRT 41 capital. I know that certainly that many nations have are really struggling and frustrated with the horrible, arduous approach that Canada has brought forward for you to receive CHRT 41 capital dollars. I know that there are many nations in British Columbia that haven't even applied for CHRT 41 applications. So there's many things that we need to really consider. And so what we're going to do, along with the First Nations Leadership Council, the technicians, all of us, take all the existing information that we have to date, and then bring that forward, and then have regional sessions to ensure that your voice is heard in what is needed in BC for long-term reform. And of course, that would be the regional variations within the larger national long-term reform for child and family as laid out in the Loving Justice Plan. So it's an exciting opportunity, but there is a lot of work, but we're willing to do it and we're ready to do it. I also wanted just to provide a quick update while we are talking about child and family. One of the things that really concerning, there's a few things that are concerning. You may have heard Galmasti on February 26th had announced the $1.55 billion for the Jordan's Principle program. To be very clear, Jordan's Principle is not a program. Jordan's Principle is an order that Canada has to follow, and they've been negligent and they haven't complied. So Minister Galmasti says, "Oh, I've got this 1.55 billion until March 31st, 2027. That's already underfunding what was spent last year. So there's over like $100 million from 2023, 2012, 24 last year that the denials and all of the ones that are left in the backlog. So there's certain things that has to happen. The Caring Society is seeking guidance from the tribunal around the CHRT 6 ruling to eliminate the backlog. And I know you as leadership, as chiefs, you've heard from your nation members. I know the frustration you've had, we all have had. What happened last year is that the minister and Canada sent out a bulletin that really narrowed the scope of Jordan's Principle and made it more difficult for your families to access Jordan's Principle. Certainly, we've been hearing horror stories across the country. So what we're trying to push Canada to do is actually follow the orders, eliminate the backlog right away. And that's what we're going to be seeking tomorrow from the tribunal, is a way forward. So Minister Galmasi can talk about this 1.5, but it's still underfunding. And it's something that they're ordered to do, and it's not a program. I just want to make that really clear. So if you get opportunity to talk to Galmasti, to have any of those regional sessions, or she's having some consultation sessions, to really bring that forward, that our children can't wait. They need the Jordan's Principle funding. She is meeting with families across the country. And again, we're really concerned about this, because there isn't a process to safeguard the families that she's talking about. We don't know what she's talking about with the families. And again, that isn't a clear process, and it's not a respectful process. We definitely know from the data that there has been an increase in the appeals. There's an increase in the backlog over the last year, and that the service denials has increased significantly since the bulletin came out. So that's another issue that we have to be discussing and have to be really aware of. I just really wanted to stop and just say, like, how appreciative we all are that all of the leadership and the chiefs and many of the frontline workers and everybody that provided input into the Loving Justice Plan, not only in BC, but in Canada. It really shows the stark difference where we were very clear about what the process was. There was an opportunity for individuals, for leadership to put what they were thinking long-term should reform in the Loving Justice Plan. And you look at what Canada did. They had an alleged communication. There was no process for consultation, and they only talked to certain leaders. We don't know who they talked to. There wasn't a real clear plan. And so definitely the Loving Justice Plan is First Nations led and First Nations designed. And you compare that to what Minister Galmasti is going across the country, bringing out their plan as if it's a fait accompli. It definitely isn't. I think there needs to be more accountability from Canada. They're still acting the way that they did over the last few years. We have always said that we were willing to work with Canada, but unfortunately right now they're sort of just going out on their own and acting like this Canada's plan is the plan. It definitely isn't. We still have the Loving Justice Plan, which was guided and designed by the leadership and by our good data, all of the research that we've done to date. So I think right now in BC, with the opportunity that we are an interested party, that we have this opportunity, that we're definitely going to do what is best for our children and what is just for our children. So thank you for allowing me this time. Masai.
Thank you, Mary. Just wanted to encourage everyone and thank you for your ongoing support, the chiefs in British Columbia and across Canada, for supporting this work, this very important work. I just wanted to encourage all of you to, if you can, attend the national AFN meeting in Ottawa in July. I don't have the dates in front of me, because we will be bringing that the Loving Justice Plan forward, and we'll be looking for your ongoing support. I also wanted to thank our regional chief, Terry Teegee, for his ongoing support for this work and for us at the table here to continue on. It's always been encouraging to have that leadership support wherever we go. And just wanted to say, I know that when they put up the screen on the QR codes, it was very quick, and I'm going to see if we can make copies of this that you can have and hand out. So that, It's all been handed out to you. All right, they're ahead of me. Just another reminder about the webinars coming up on March 13th on funding and also on March 27th on the surface level agreements. So just encourage anyone to attend those and register for those for further information. Do you have anything else, Helen? Any questions or comments?
Thank you very much for that. Just as a note for in the room, there are little QR codes have been distributed around the room for that. And then I'll just ask if you could put the QR code back up on the screen. That last slide that was up, and that'll be for the online group. I do look at the delegation here and online to see if there is a need for any question or comment on this issue. I know we've had an opportunity to explore it a number of times, and while the floor is open to you, I would note that I'm trying to do a few things in addition to what's on our agenda this morning. Microphone 20, I can't see the number, looks like 24. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I just want to say thank you for the presentation. And I'm wondering around the order CHRT 6, which asked the government to get rid of the backlog for the Jordan's Principle. First of all, is there somewhere where I can get that information? Secondly, what can we as chiefs do in order to help to push that? Because I think in every one of our communities, I did it again. I didn't even introduce myself. Pela que está lá, nugua penuidas, gaya klenlak memkulis, gaya klenlak takis, olak ela ikyoktanala. Sorry about that. I did that yesterday, and I also didn't thank our prayer this morning and our song, as I forgot it yesterday. So I'm just thanking also the people whose territory we are on for allowing us to do this important work here. So I just really want to go back to what I asked. CHRT 6, as I understand it, is to get rid of the backlog with regard to Jordan's Principle. And I know that all of our communities are suffering from that backlog. And so I just want to know what we as chiefs can do to try to help that process and to push it forward.
Maybe I can get Mary to speak to that. Mary, you still online?
Yeah, I am. And Chief John Powell, no introduction needed. Come on. I just wanted, to bring this up because, as I said earlier, the CHRT 6, you can find that actually on the FN IMO witness site, the Carrying Society. There is an information bulletin on what that is. And again, it's very clear that Canada is ordered to eliminate the backlog. So they're not just they're defying the law right now is what Canada is doing. So as leadership, what you need to do is compel Canada and strongly give them direction to follow legal orders. That's what we're just asking for. I just wanted to say, the backlog is one issue, but the Galmasti, saying, there's 1.55 billion. Last year, just from the 24-25 year, it was 1.64 billion that was expended on Jordan's Principle. So that's $174 million less is what she announced. And again, with Jordan's Principle, it's based on actual need. And so those are actual costs. So you can't really cap something that's an order. So again, that's something that the chiefs, I think, really need to bring up. And in July, certainly, we could have resolutions that is directing Canada just to follow the orders. But in the interim, certainly, writing letters to the minister to tell her to comply and to eliminate the backlog as laid out in CHRT 6.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there any other questions or comments? Not seeing any here in the room or any hands online. I will thank Deborah and Helen and Mary for that presentation. Appreciate that. And just again, a reminder to everybody, opportunity to contribute to the Loving Justice Plan online using the QR codes. A reminder that Jordan's principle is a legal mandate, not a program within the government. Again, just some cautionary notes about the limited negotiation mandate that Canada is bringing to the regional discussions. With that, please join with me and the final comment, Deborah.
Oh, I was just going to say kleko and yusaksha to thank everyone here again for your ongoing support. And Helen and I are here for the rest of the day, so if there's any, you have opportunity to come and talk to us, we're happy to talk to you directly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. They're over by microphone 22 if you're, the line starts at microphone 22. Thank you very much. I would note that our next presenter is online, but I do need permission from the delegation. We've had a request from Grand Chief Percy Joe to make a comment about veterans, and with your permission, we'll invite Percy Joe to the podium to come forward and make his comment, and then following that, we'll turn back to our agenda, pretty much on time for the early learning and child care funding discussion. Please help me welcome the Grand Chief.
Thank you. I'll make it as quick as possible here because I wasn't on the agenda, and I just found out from one of my friends sitting over there, talked me into coming. I'm the representative for British Columbia for the Veterans, First Nations Veterans Council of Canada. I also chair that group. So we have representatives from all areas, except for Prince Edward Island. We don't have a representative at this time. But I just wanted to sort of fill in very quickly of the issues that we dealt with in January when we met in Toronto of getting the Veterans Affairs out in areas that they usually don't go. And so the three areas were selected. It was the Yukon, northern part of Saskatchewan, and in the East Coast, which includes Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. Now, from the report I've got back from those that were involved, Saskatchewan's been done. They're satisfied. They're getting their business done, and the East Coast there, apparently they'll be done by end of March. Now, we're having problems in Yukon. I'm not too sure exactly what the problems are, but they're having problems getting on the ground and getting Veterans Affairs working with them. And so once the East Coast gets done, hopefully by end of March, that we'll be meeting with Veterans Affairs again in Nova Scotia in April, first week of April or second week of April. Then we start moving on again. So I just wanted, also just wanted to, bring another area of problems that I face. Is British Columbia is a big area to cover, and so we don't have a budget as First Nations Veterans Council of getting out to the communities. I do go, I think I was in Fort St. James 2 years ago because I was invited to a name-given ceremony in that area. So I was able to, see if there was any veterans that needed help. I do move around in the area here, particularly during the Remembrance Day service. I've been in several little areas, and from Vancouver to I think I went to Okanagan band twice, and I haven't come down in this area yet, but I'd sure like to do that. And the other thing is, because we only have one representative from each province, and the only way we get two, that we need a female. And so I'm looking for a female veteran that would be willing to be part of the First Nations Veterans of Canada, and I'm hoping that it's someone more up in the northern area, because that's an area that I haven't been able to reach, and I don't know how many veterans there are there, and that we've done some agreements with Veterans Affairs in the past already, and one of them was like, we have 4 pillars, we're working on the second pillar now. The first pillar was the outreach program that working veterans staff get out to the communities, and I think that they've come to Pentictonite when they had powwows, that they set a table up there. So that's one of the things. Plus, I'm actually looking for somebody to take over my position. I've been involved for 27 years with veterans, and I'm getting up on age. My memory's starting to fail me. Sometimes when I meet with the council, I try to remember names. I can't remember them. So, in a sense, I'm looking for that. I wanted to also, have somebody else on the council to be the chair, and they just won't let me go. They just said I'm doing a good job, and so I guess I'll have to believe them that I'm doing good enough job that they're not taking my place. But we do have. I don't get involved in a lot of the sort of the daily stuff that needs. We have 3 people that represent us as the working committee, as we call them, and 2 of them are actually, there's a male and a female from Nova Scotia, and then one from that lives in Ontario but represents the Northwest Territories, because that's where he's originally from. So those are the 3 that do a lot of the work, and those are the people I contact to try and get information as to what's happening. So anyways, I don't want to take any more of your time. I know how busy you are and other important things that you must do, but so that's the point. I just want to stop and just thank everybody for the service that you provide to all our community. So thank you very much.
Percy, I just want to really thank you for your service the last 24 years, and also chairing the veterans. Very important work that you've done, and your leadership. So, and also the service of this country. At times we see many of our people that gave the ultimate cost, the ultimate price, and just want to thank you for all your advocacy. And right there's another veteran, Harlan. Perhaps he'll take over, right? Sorry to put you on the spot, Harlan. Anyways, let's give it up for.
Awesome. Great to see you again, Grand Chief. And Grand Chief, we have a gift for you. And in addition to younger veterans like Harlan, he did make a specific request for a female veteran, ideally from the northern part of the province, to participate in that organization. So thank you very much, and good to see you again. We have a couple agenda items. We're going to turn to the early learning and childcare funding, and following that, we do have a resolution attached, and then we'll look to Deputy Chief Harlan Schilling for a quick update on the Economic Development Center of Excellence. I would like to, at that point, turn to simply for an announcement for the 2S LGBTQIA plus council, and then do a transition break because we are going to be moving into the in-camera. But we also want to make sure you have time to get out and visit the vendors, as well as participate in the prize draw for those of you who purchase from the vendors. And the vendors have been generous enough to donate several gifts for that draw, so really appreciative of that. I'll turn your attention to the screen, and we are joined online by Karen Isaac, who's, of course, well known to us for her long-serving work as the Executive Director of the BC Aboriginal Child Care Society, and through which she has done many work and gone through many resolution processes with you to support her work in the early learning and child care sector. Karen, over to you. Good to see you this morning.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I hope I'm at a hotel, so the internet may not be as secure as I'd like. But thank you for giving me the opportunity today to speak to the resolution that's before you, which is a mirror resolution that was passed by the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, I believe last month, respecting 16 million in early learning and childcare funding that the Ministry of Education and Childcare has offered to provide to First Nations for next fiscal year. I understand that there was a briefing note shared with delegates. And as well, I think a copy of BCAFN's capital funding policy was also shared for this meeting. So I apologize for the long briefing note that we did provide you, but we thought it was really important to give you a big picture view of what's going on in the area of capital for early learning and childcare among BC First Nations. I just wanted to make a few comments today, in addition to what's been covered in the briefing note, to give some context and background regarding the 16 million that's currently on the table. This is 25-26 funding that the ministry needs to expend before March 31st, 2026. So they approached, I believe, the FNLC in November to come up or decide on a plan for that money so that it wouldn't be lost because it had to be committed by March 31st, 2026. The availability of this funding hasn't been consistent in the last 2 years, and there isn't any clear commitment from BC whether this funding will be available in future years. What we know is that the overall total is 50% less than what was allocated in 22, 23, and 24. That funding amount was 35 million, and from responses from the ministry, these were carryover funds from 22-23. So it's been a combination of savings that they've made in other areas that they've been able to offer First Nations early learning and childcare, or support early learning and childcare. They did so in 2022, 23, and 23 and 24. So 35 million was distributed among the 200, were offered to 200 First Nations here in British Columbia. The baseline amount of that, based on the 35 million, was about $85,000. So I believe 62 First Nation communities received that full amount, and the rest were either lower or slightly higher, depending upon the population, because the allocation was based on a population funding model. What we have learned from this process, though, is that told us or has reported that there was an overwhelming response from First Nations because the funding was flexible and that they could use it for a variety of purposes, including on repairs, renovations, and expansion of their childcare facilities or Head Start programs. From the data, it looks like 53% of that funding went for that purpose, for repairs, renovations, and expansion. So, in terms of the resolution before you, I think, and just to mention our approach to funding, as you know, we manage the federal portion of the ELCC dollars coming into British Columbia, and ours is a very flexible, open approach. And I think, we recognize that this is needed to support all nations within all levels of capacity to access this funding. The approach is to build more equity across and between programs in British Columbia. So that's been our approach so far. And that will be the approach that we will continue with. I think, as I said, the flexibility of the funding for MEC, I think, was welcomed. And again, that's something that that per capita models and approaches don't necessarily advance equity. And I think that's the problem with that approach. While it addresses important needs in numerous communities, it prioritizes those with greater overall populations and greater capacity to take on and manage reporting on this funding. There's also, sorry, I have to put on my glasses. This long-standing approach to colonial funding models has resulted in less equity across the province, and it's resulted in capacity rewarding rather than capacity building. What BCAFN is proposing to do is that the funds available in 25-26 will be used strategically, maintaining the flexibility and responsiveness that we continue to take in building greater equity and access across nations and programs. So we also want to ensure these funds support some of the communities that have historically not been able to access much needed resources. And I just wanted to mention too, that there hasn't been significant investment in infrastructure or capital for early learning and childcare since 2000. So there's a huge gap and there's a huge need that needs to be addressed and dealt with appropriately and in a responsive manner. I also wanted to mention, because this was asked at the last meeting with union chiefs, this funding there aren't necessarily strings attached. I think MEC has promised that BCAFN could hold these funds in trust for 2 years, meaning that the nations that we have currently, I think there's about 71 nations that we're supporting right now to do some needs assessment and planning for capital. So that will give them more time, will buy more time so that we can access funding, because after March 31st, 2027, there will be no infrastructure funding from either Canada or BC, from what we gather. I understand the federal capital fund for British Columbia will be just over $1 million, and that funding is to support maintenance and not new construction. So we have a huge need. We have timelines that necessitate a well-thought, strategic, and balanced approach to how we use these funds. So, and again, just to remind leaders in the room that BCAFN continues to manage other funding streams that nations can apply for, whether it's capital, whether it's wage enhancements, whether it's expanding service or improving quality of service. So that work continues. We just have this opportunity to hold this fund for the next 2 years to ensure that the nations with the most need are able to access this funding. I think that's all I have to say, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for that, Karen. I will look quickly to see if there are any questions here in the room or online. Otherwise, we will introduce the resolution and proceed with that. So with a quick scan, not seeing any pressing questions, let us turn to that. I'll ask the delegation to turn to draft resolution 3, allocation of First Nations early learning and child care funding, moved by Cookby Helen Henderson here in the room. I do need a seconder for this. I see Chief Jerry Jack as the seconder. Thank you very much, Chief. As Karen mentioned, this is a mirrored resolution from a previous UBCIC meeting. Just very quickly, I'll tell you that it reaffirms, as we have so often, that First Nations people have always maintained their jurisdiction over the care, teaching, and responsibility of their children. This is supported by several articles of the UN Declaration, and then it reaffirms the work that the First Nations Leadership Council and the 3 political organizations, and in particular BCAFN, have provided both in terms of mandate and support to the BC Aboriginal Child Care Society to be the lead agency in the National Indigenous Early Learning and Child Care Framework Development and Implementation process. It does note the previous funding distributions which the BCACs managed on our behalf here in the province in 2022 and 2023, and then notes that in working with the government, they've asked for this specific adjustment to turn that funding into a trust, which you'll see in therefore be it or whereas E, and so therefore be it resolved that the BCAFN Chiefs in Assembly support the advancement of the identified approximately $16.5 million in Canada-wide early learning and childcare ELCC funding to the BC Aboriginal Child Care Society to be held in trust and allocated in support of a few major capital projects in BC First Nations communities commencing in 26-27 and 27-28 fiscal years for priority access for those First Nations who have not been able to secure this funding to date in accordance with BC ACT's First Nations-led capital funding policy, and then evenly distribute the remaining funding among all First Nations in BC. And 2, the BCAFN Chiefs in Assembly directs the Regional Chief, working with the Union of BC Indian Chiefs and the First Nations Summit as the First Nations Leadership Council, to work with the Ministry of Education and Childcare and the BC Aboriginal Child Care Society to advocate for the timely advancement of the funding in a manner that respects First Nations jurisdiction, equity, and long-term infrastructure needs as directed by the title and rights holders. Is there a need for discussion of this resolution? Is there a need for discussion of this resolution? Seeing or hearing none here in the room or online, let us call the question. Are there any objections to this resolution? Are there any objections to this resolution? Seeing or hearing none, are there any abstentions? Are there any abstentions? Seeing or hearing none, according to the rules, this resolution is adopted by acclamation. Thank you very much. Karen, any final comments?
No, just really thanking the Chiefs again for their support through all these years, and we will report out in a timely way on how these funds are going to be used. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you very much. Please join with me in thanking Karen for the presentation and for her work on that resolution. Let us move to our next agenda item. Deputy Chief Harlan Schilling, the CEO of the Center of Excellence on Economic Development, is here, of course, to provide the update, and I look forward to his presentation. And please help me welcome Harlan.
Good morning, Chiefs. First, I just want to thank Percy for his service, just being able to be on the sidebar, to be able to talk to another First Nation Aboriginal veteran is very few and far between for myself as a young veteran myself. So Percy, again, I hope we have many more conversations to reminiscence about our time in CAF. So Guess everybody, for the chiefs that do not know me, my name's Harlan Schilling. I'm the Deputy Chief for Des Lieutenant Council in Lower Post, British Columbia, which is right up on the BC-Yukon border, which I've had the honor of serving on council for the last 9 years. Prior to my service, prior to being the chief, I served 7 years as a combat engineer. As a combat engineer. Great time in service. This is probably my favorite place to present, to be able to update the Chiefs in Assembly, the work that we're doing within the Center of Excellence. So for the last 2 years, I have been the CEO for the First Nations Center, which was born right here with the BCAFN. Next slide, please. So the background for the Center of Excellence, it was established in the fall of 2023 through the Chiefs in Assembly, through a resolution here to create an organization to help First Nation communities with anything and everything economic development. So as you can see, we're dedicated to promoting economic reconciliation, growth, and self-determination, First Nations-led institution supporting economic development across all sectors, and upholding BC First Nations' inherent rights and title, advancing economic and financial independence for nations. So over the last 2 years, we've had a primary focus with northern and rural remote communities, so Prince George and North, but we have been branched out and reached out by other First Nation communities throughout the entire province and the territory of Yukon. Next slide, please. So our service delivery model, again, as a young leader, one of the biggest things that I found were being taken advantage of by consultants. So there's a lot of work that, again, First Nation communities need in proposal writing, and again, small capacity gaps that we help fill. So we have a small team that is able to go into communities and find the specific needs for those First Nations on economic values. So it goes anywhere from housing to construction companies to helping create gas stations and helping them create relationships with their local governments and even connecting with some of the ministries in Victoria. So again, our work is community-based, increasing First Nations participation in Canada's economy. As everybody could imagine, over the last year with the Trump tariffs and everything else, it has opened the door for more opportunities for First Nations to get involved in some of the wider trade operations that are happening here in British Columbia. So, and again, being able to honor our culture, our history, and our values of each of the First Nations that we are able to go into. Next slide, please. So this is a great program that I'd like to update the Chiefs in Assembly. So this year, we are taking upwards of 20 youth to the Indo-Pacific. So again, because of the tariffs and the way we are economically with our trading partner to the south, the U.S., we are having to open more doors to our other trading partners in the Indo-Pacific. So this year, we are doing 2 trips. It was originally 3, but we've busted it down to 2. And we're going to be taking the youth to 8 different countries. So we've got Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Eastern and Western Australia, and New Zealand. This is a very unique opportunity for young leaders that were selected by their chiefs and councils in their communities to take a look at what it is that these countries need and the resources that we have here, specifically in British Columbia and the Yukon. So this is starting, the project starts this month, March 20th. We are taking the 20 youth to Tawasin to do the opening presentation with them, and again, get them connected with the Indigenous leaders that they will be attending with. And then we are taking them off to Ottawa to meet with some of the federal ministers on international trade. If there are any chiefs that have a young, bright leader in their community that would like to attend, we are closing the acceptance for this on Friday. Next slide, please. So one of the biggest projects that we have been working on, more specifically in the last 6 months, is the BC Yukon Grid Connection project. So over this past winter, the Yukon grid in Whitehorse, Yukon hit 94% of its capacity. So again, this affects all 14 First Nations in the Yukon and 3 of the First Nations in northern British Columbia. So the center has been contacted by the Yukon Development Corporation and the Kaska Mine Nations within Quadacha and Dease River First Nation to help and assist the First Nations in capacity and knowing what type of questions regarding impact benefit agreements that the First Nations should be looking at. So again, this is something that is very new, and again, very happy that the Center of Excellence and my team is able to assist on. Next slide, please. So the same thing with the Concept Rail project connecting the North. So one of the main projects, again, this has been talked in the talks roughly from the 70s and 80s, connecting Alberta to Alaska via a railway. So again, I'm very proud of the First Nations standing up to, again, that are opposed to the pipeline work within their traditional territories. That is, again, protecting our lands and our rights and title. So this, I was told when approached, was Alberta's backup plan. So again, there will be many First Nations affected by a rail, and the center has been reached out to by the organization in Alberta to ensure that they are connecting with the right First Nation communities that will be affected if this project ever goes. So again, it's projected to be a $15 to $20 billion project. Again, years in the making. So again, to have the Alberta government and that team reach out to us to ensure that they are connecting to the right First Nations to again consult with the people if they want this project to move forward or not. Next slide, please. So for our funding review, again, the Center of Excellence was originally funded by the Ministry of JEDI, which is now JEG, Jobs and Economic Growth. So we have secured funding for the 25 and 26 year agreement. And again, one of the next things that we announced at the last AGM is that the Center of Excellence has now secured a 3-year funding agreement through Pacifican, which again, we will start this year. So, and again, I'd like to thank the staff at the BCAFN over the last couple of years for helping us to secure this funding and, again, ensuring that the work at the center continues. Next slide, please. So, one of the things with the BCAFN, when the Center of Excellence, the concept of the center was brought up, was to always be aligned with the BCAFN. But we are now, again, at a point in the center's creation to separate and be our own entity. And again, so with the resolution that was passed past November is to transition of the BC First Nation Center of Excellence. Slide went up. Oh, sorry. No, it's good. So the resolution was passed for the Center of Excellence to be a standalone, independent entity. I'd like to take this time to thank the BCAFN Board of Directors for the last 2 years working with the center, and again, Board of Directors Brian Issue, Chief Donald Sam, and Regional Chief Terry Teegee for taking the extra time out of their busy schedules to ensure that the center transitions again as its own entity. So again, they are now working as our interim board of directors. So next. So the incorporation, the Center of Excellence has been incorporated as a new society and is prepared to be a standalone. The additional accomplishments include we have finalized the transition plan, again, that will show to work alongside the BCAFN with specifically on economic development. Our independent banking is to be completed by the end of this month. And again, as I'd mentioned, the 3 chiefs that are again assisting as our interim board of directors. So looking ahead, expanding partnerships and enhancing our services, implementing the COE's service delivery model with key stakeholders. Again, so as it sits right now, we've provided services to 8 First Nations, and we have 2 more First Nation communities that we intend to visit this month. Advancing our initiatives for economic reconciliation and sustainability, and enhancing communications and the digital presence. Extending outreach to more communities across British Columbia. And just wanted to take note with that, there has been expression from the new government within the Yukon to, again, have the center come in and assist with the 14 other First Nations in the north. And again, if that moves forward, I would be coming to the Chiefs in Assembly for a resolution to have us continue that work in the north. And aligning with First Nation values and priorities, continuation of funding to deliver our services without interruption. So again, the work that we're doing, again, I love it. It's helping First Nation. It always boils down to capacity. So I enjoy being able to bring our team into your communities and, again, provide that on a scale that gets us all to a certain level on an economic forefront. So again, anywhere from creating a gas station to getting an economic development corporation in each First Nation community. And then one of probably the most fulfilling thing for me is creating partnerships within our nations. Because again, every First Nation has something that again, our communities and our peoples need. So again, being able to be that conduit to connecting our neighboring nations to each other to ensure economic sustainability for all of our people. So again, over the next few months, the pilot projects are going to be probably my main priority. Again, I think it's a huge opportunity to have our young Indigenous people going over to these countries. And again, in this economic time that we find with our trading partners to the south, creating a space for our Indigenous people to show the world that we should be at every table when it comes to trade, specifically international. So again, if there are any chiefs that would like to talk to me about, again, this youth opportunity, right now it's been so successful. It's sounding like we're going to be looking at possibly doing one next year in the UK and Europe. Again, being country specific on the things that those countries need that we trade with them internationally. So with that, is there any questions for me?
Microphone 25.
Aichka, and thank you so much for the presentation. Every time you speak, you remind me that I need to call the office and set something up. Just really encouraging to hear the great work that's happening and so needed in our communities. Just to share for us at Likes, and we acquired 350 acres of second generation forestry land, and we need to transform that into a village site. I'm an orator. I'm a negotiator. I have no idea how to make that happen. And yes, consultants are lining up to assist. So just really encouraged to hear what you're sharing, and really thank you for your dedication to the work, because it's definitely needed. And I look forward to at some point being able to connect with the center to get the support that our community needs. Haichka.
Thank you.
Any further questions? With that, then, let us thank Harlan for that excellent update.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Harlan. We are on a 15-minute break. So please go to the vendors both down in the lobby here and down at the other end of the hall. As mentioned, anybody who, and before you go, Semplian, let's do your announcement now, because our next agenda item will be the in-camera. So you wanted to do a quick announcement about the Two-Spirit?
Sure. Right now?
Right now, please.
Right now?
Microphone 8.
Hatsquile, Tonoyap, Steokokwache, Kupis. First of all, to our respected chiefs, Kupis, elders, matriarchs. My ancestor name is Semplian. I am the 2S LGBTQIA plus knowledge keeper for the BC Assembly of First Nations. And we had our first council meeting. If I can have my council members come behind me, please. I apologize for the delay.
Do you want to come here?
I got it. These two of our council members are 2S LGBTQIA plus representative Oreen Askew had other commitments. Again, this is from our meeting we held yesterday. And to our respected chiefs, kupis, elders, matriarchs, in order to socialize the concept of the 2S LGBTQIA plus council with chiefs and proxies during BCAFN 2026 SCA, council members can share the following messages. Personal information, myself, I'm simply on, and I've been the 2S LGBTQIA plus knowledge keeper coming on 4 years now. And which was, you may know, is mandated by the BCAFN Chiefs in Assembly in 2005 via Resolution 01/2025. We are currently seeking additional council members to ensure the diversity of council. The call for expressions of interest has been informed by 2S LGBTQIA plus council members and is accessible to First Nation community members who do not need to have experience in advocacy space. The 2S LGBTQIA plus council is a safe, inclusive space where we will honor and uplift each other by encouraging 2S LGBTQIA plus First Nations people to show up as they are and to inform BCFN gender equity work. The 2S LGBTQIA plus council will provide advice to the 2S LGBTQIA plus representative on policy, legislation, and other matters that impact 2S LGBTQIA plus persons. The 2S LGBTQIA plus council members will be responsible for bringing forward issues from their respective regions and communities. If you know of any 2S LGBTQIA plus members in your community, on behalf of council, we encourage you to share this opportunity with them. Please pass on the expression of interest along to them and encourage them to submit. Currently, there is no deadline for the submission process, so we are reaching out. We are a small council, and so we're wanting to grow this council with the help and support of our respected chiefs, kupis, proxies, and matriarchs that are in the room and online. With that, I say Chinquamantomi. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate that. And thank you for your patience. And so again, we are on break for 15 minutes, and then we will look to transition to the in camera. We're a little early on that, so we'll play that time by as we need to. Just as a reminder, when we do go in camera, that is for chiefs and proxies. That is for what's called participatory representatives. That's PTO presidents, grand chiefs, treaty nation leaders, hereditary chiefs, and then board members and knowledge keepers. And so those are the people anticipated. Anybody here in the room or online who's going to participate in the in-camera needs to have signed the NDA agreement or given their agreement to be bound by that, a non-disclosure agreement. And if not, then we are on a bit of an honor system on that in terms of staying in the vendor's area or signing off online for the duration. We do have 2 in cameras scheduled when we return, and then at 1 o'clock when the 2 ministers will join us for that very same discussion. Okay. Please enjoy your break, and remember, any item you buy, you will get a ticket, and we will enter that into a draw as well. And I got a few things I gotta go collect. Back to the tables. I'll invite the regional chief and legal counsel Laura Beaudre to the head table here, and we are joined online by Merrill Alexander, also legal counsel to the BCAFN. So as noted, we are moving into an in-camera session. So chiefs, proxies, participatory representatives, those who have signed the NDA are allowed in the meeting. And so I'll, again, look for you to police that appropriately, and I'll look